All right, you're selling your house, you get an offer, and it's contingent on the sale of that buyer's property. Do you take it? Well, I'll give you some thoughts that I have on that. Stay tuned.
You better get fired up.
Guys, great to see you. Happy Monday. Hopefully you had a great weekend. I know I did. I was actually out with my kids. We had a daughter day. It was her day. She could do anything she wanted. She wanted to go to the Sportsman's Park and play tag. I get really competitive, but I'm a little old to be competitive with a bunch of little kids. And I end up rolling my ankle. So now I'm hobbling around like an old man. But we're getting there, man. I can still do this kind of stuff. I can still slowly walk around and show houses, but my age is showing this week. So bear with me. But anyway, we're going to talk about sale contingencies. I did kind of beat this to death in a video on Friday, but I did it more from a buyer's perspective than a seller's perspective. I wanted to talk more about the seller in this video and what their perspective on that sale contingency should be. Just to kind of rehash a little bit about what I discussed with buyers is there's a pro and a con to both, right? If you sell your house first and then go buy and you do not have a sale contingency, you've got a period of time in there where you're going to have to do a short-term rental or maybe a one-year rental. And you're going to have to move your stuff potentially twice, right? That can be a pain in the butt. The pro, though, is you have the most negotiation leverage because you don't have that red flag of a sale contingency. Now, if you have a sale contingency, the pro is everything, if it works out perfectly, is just seamless, right? You close on this day on your current house, you close on the same day on your new house, and you just drive that U-Haul from 3rd Street to 8th Street and bada bing, bada boom, you're good to go. It's super smooth. But the negative is your ability to negotiate goes down dramatically because now you've got that ugly sale contingency on there, right? There's more to it. Go watch the video from Friday if you want to learn more about that as a buyer. But today we're going to shift focus from buyer to seller, okay? When you're a seller and you see that offer and you're thinking, okay, this is a great offer. I might take this offer. And then all of a sudden on that 12th page of 13, it says, sale contingency. What do you do? What are your thoughts? I'm going to share with you my thoughts. I've sold hundreds of homes, and we've had quite a few that have had a sale contingency on them. I've done it both with the buy side and with the sell side. I've seen a lot of success. I've seen a lot of failure. And so I'm going to share my thoughts today. These are my thoughts. These are my opinions. You don't have to side with them. There's reasons where I wouldn't necessarily agree with this. And I will say I'm talking about the most general circumstances. There are situations, everything needs to fit motivation. There are situations where based on your specific situation, your motivation, whatever it is you're trying to accomplish, I would go against what I'm about to say, right? So everybody's circumstances being a little bit different are going to change how I give you guidance in that specific situation. But generally speaking, if I'm a listing agent and I'm giving you recommendations as a seller and we're looking at an offer that you would otherwise take, but it's got a sale contingency, what I'm usually going to say to you, I like to talk in percentages. And I usually say, hey, I'm making this up, but I want to give you my gut feeling on the odds of certain things happening, right? So you've got different levels of a sale contingency. You could have a sale contingency where the home of that buyer is not even on the market yet. They want to see if you'll accept their offer, contingent on the sale of their property. And once you do, then maybe in 2-3 days, maybe in 2-3 weeks, they'll get their home on the market. I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of that because I don't know that home. I don't know the condition of the home. So it's not something I can just look up and do research on. I've seen we all have seen beautiful photos, and you think this home is worth 600 grand. And then all of a sudden you physically get there. And because you can see the details, you can see all the baseboards are beat up by the dogs and the kids. You can see that there's smudges in the fridge. You can see that half the light bulbs are out. You can see that the skylight has, a dead cockroach and a dead rat up on it. You can see that the gutters are filled with dirt and they got plants growing out of it. These are all things that maybe you couldn't see in the photos or you didn't notice in the photos. So I can give you value through photos, but that value accuracy is based solely on my depiction of the accuracy of the photos, which a lot of times is going to be off. A home almost never, I don't want to say never, but almost never looks as good in person as it does in the photos. There are exceptions. That's assuming you've got a professional, right? So for that reason, I can't just look up a home and say, okay, it's worth this, blah, blah, blah. But here's another layer. What are you going to list it for? Maybe that home's worth 500 grand, but you're going to list it for 550. Okay, well, we're going to be sitting here for 6 to 12 months, and we've still got a less than 50% chance of you even selling because you're not realistic on pricing. Now, if you've got a $500,000 home and you're going to list it at 495, now we're talking. Now I think there's a good chance you're going to sell your home. That's a little bit better, but I need to know that. And if you're going as my seller to accept that offer, we're going to look that up and we're going to put in the contract in writing, you will list the property by this day at this price or lower if we're going to accept this offer. Now they're contractually bound to it, because if they verbally tell you and they don't put it in writing, they can do any doggone thing they want. And depending upon how your offer is written up, you may or may not have the ability to kick them out. There's something called a kick out clause, right? That's a whole nother video. So that's the first thing. Are you even on the market yet? Now, if you are on the market, but you don't have a buyer under contract yet, then my question is, how realistic is your pricing? And again, we have all those same concerns. If I can't see, feel, and touch the house, especially if the house is not in the area, right? Maybe the house is in Miami, or it's in New York, or it's in Hawaii. Okay, well, I can't see, feel, and touch that house. It's really hard for me, even with photos, to know what that property is worth. Not to mention the fact that I'm a pro at the Treasure Coast. I can tell you all about Port St. Lucie, Fort Pierce, Palm City, Jensen Beach, and Stewart. I can't tell you a doggone thing about Miami. I can't tell you anything about Fort Lauderdale, and I sure as heck can't tell you anything about Maryland, right? So how am I going to give you an accurate depiction of price? Plus, I don't have the same tools, the MLS, there that I have here. So I just can't be as good at it as I could in those other areas. What's the buyer's agent going to say? Oh, they're going to tell us the home is worth millions. It's going to sell in a day. Trust me. They're a salesman. You want my opinion because I'm protecting you. And honestly, while I can give you a better guess than the Zillow's estimate's going to give, I can't give as good a guess I could if the property was local here in Port St. Lucie and I'd physically seen the inside. So that's the fear in taking that offer, even when it is on the market, if we don't have a buyer under contract yet, is I don't know how realistic your pricing is. And I don't know how flexible you're going to be on negotiating. If you get an offer 20 grand lower, are you going to take it? 10 grand lower, are you going to take it? Or are you hard set on your price? If you're hard set on your price and you're 25 grand over, there's no way you're going to sell, right? Now, the next best is, hey, we do have a buyer under contract. Okay, that's beautiful. And we do get offers a lot where, hey, we just went under contract with this person yesterday, and now we'd like to have you accept our offer. Well, the concern with that is a good portion of buyers back out during inspection period. I've never looked this up before. I'm going to look it up right now. What percentage of buyers back out of a real estate deal before inspection period is over? I don't know if that's perfectly worded, but let's see if we can get some AI rough answer. In 2022, as many as 15% of home purchase agreements fell through. Okay, that doesn't mean that it was due to home inspection. Is that the only number that I get? How often do buyers back out after inspection? This is inspectionsupport.com. 3.9% of real estate sales fail after the, well, that's not true. That's low. I think 10 to 15% is probably more accurate. So let's just guess it is 10 to 15%. I don't want to take our listing off the market, wait the 5, 7, 10, 14 days that your seller has agreed to with their buyer on their inspection period, and then your deal falls apart, and now I got to go back on the market, and I got to explain to a bunch of agents why that just happened. And they're thinking, is he lying to us? Is there really a roof leak? Are there termites in the house? Is there mold in the attic? What's going on? It raises concerns that we don't want raised, and it hurts our ability to sell for full value. I always tell people, if I tell you your home is worth 500 and you listed at 5.25, by the time you drop it to 500, you might only get 490 because now you're market worn. You've been there for a while. People can see you've been on for 30, 60, 90 days. the likelihood that they're going to give you full price is a lot less. So your ability to negotiate goes down, right? Well, that same thing is true if you take your home off the market. You're not taking it off the market, but your market is pending. And now most buyers are not going to go look at a pending sale. Some will, but 90+% of them are saying, forget that, I'm not interested. And now when you come back on, you haven't been on for 3 days, you've been on for 17 days, and it says back on market. Huge red flag, right? So now we got a bunch of questions coming in asking me what is wrong with our listing, and I've got to sell them on the fact that it's nothing. We just had a buyer whose deal fell apart. That can be challenging for you, and it can impact the price that you're able to get. So be aware of that. Next level up. You're on the market, you got your buyer, and you're through inspection. Okay, now I'm very confident. That is an offer that in most cases, unless I have another offer that's better, I'm probably going to take that offer seriously. I do want to look at their contract, and here in Florida, I think it's addendum V. Don't hold me to that, and you don't care. It states specifically that if you've got someone under contract, you do have to provide the contract to the next listing agent, which in this example would be me. I'm going to look through that with you, the seller, and I'm going to say, here's all the issues we've got remaining. Have they submitted their escrow funds? Probably. Are they through inspection? In this example, we said yes. Do they have a financing contingency? If they do, hey, I might want to talk to their lender. I might want to see, are they 20% down or are they 3.5% down? Big difference in my confidence level with them. I might want to call the lender and say, hey, can you tell me a little bit about their situation? What's their credit score look like? How strong are they? How much cash do they have in the bank? Can I see the proof of funds that they had? Did they come in with 20 grand or did they come in with 200 grand? Very different situations, because if we have some sort of problem, the person with 200 grand in the bank versus 20 grand in the bank is going to be able to solve a lot more problems. Doesn't mean they will. They've got the ability to. I want to know what those abilities are so I can share that with my seller. So we're going to look into all of the different contingencies they have. Sometimes, and they won't share this with you every time, that offer is contingent on the sale of another property. So now not only do I got to see your offer and look through it all and consider the financing, the lending, whatever it is, but I've got to look into another deal to see if they're through inspection. What does their buyer look like? Are they funded? Are they cash? What does the funding look like? How much do they have in proof of funds? All those different issues. And you've got to really get deep on it. I've had it before where there's 4 or 5 homes that need to close all in the same day. It's quite a chain, right? So you got to do a lot of digging. So those are the different things that I'm asking. I will say this, though, and this is more to a buyer than a seller because a seller can do whatever they want. But you generally can beat on a seller in one area. If you start beating on a seller in 2 areas or more, they're going to get emotionally beat up and they're probably going to walk. Every time? No, not every time. But I'll tell people, and I'll give you a great example. The home is 500 grand. We want to come in at 480. That's a low offer, right? 490, 495 is a reasonably low offer. 480. In this market, it's not crazy. It's just, you better know you're emotionally beating on these sellers. Okay. It's going to be countered. I'm not saying you're going to accept the counter, but it's almost assuredly going to be countered. So now not only are you asking for the 20,000, but you also want $10,000 of your closing costs to be paid by the seller, and you want them to pay for title, which might be $2,800 to $3,000, right? And you want them to pay a high, what they consider to be a high commission to your buyer's agent. You're beating on that person in multiple areas. What I would suggest, if you have the financial ability to do so, is let's look at what your net is with this offer you're suggesting. You pay for title, you pay for your closing costs, you pay your buyer's commission. But, and again, this is all if you have the financial ability to do this, let's lower that price. Now it's going to net you exactly the same amount, but you're only beating on the seller in one area. It's emotionally more palatable. When I go through an offer and I say, okay, seller, I've got 4 good things to talk about. I've got 7 things that you're probably going to push back on. That's much different than, hey, I got 10 great things to talk about and 1 negative. Let's just start it off with the negative. It's price, right? And a lot of buyers in this market are going to push back on price in the opening. It's not meant to be offensive. It's a blah, blah, blah. I got to go through and soothe your emotions. But here's what they laid out. Now, I know you want to come back and tell me right now, Joe, we're not going to accept that. We're going to counter and blah, blah. Let's do that at the end. I want to make sure you're good with all these other terms, because if you are, then all we're talking about is price and we can move forward. If we focus on price right now and I get you the price we're looking for and you don't focus on all these terms, you might later find out that some of these terms are not what you want, right? And I think they're pretty favorable for you. Now I'm able to present that in a way that gets that seller interested. They're attracted to that offer. Maybe they're not excited about the price, but they're only getting beat up in one area. So now they're focused on one area. If I've got them focused on a bunch of different things, it is very common, buyers and sellers, to say, I just had one the other day where I had a beautiful offer that I submitted and they pushed back on 7 different areas, right? And for me, it was emotionally taxing, which I'm a pro at this, right? And it kind of makes me laugh. It doesn't emotionally beat me up. But their opening was, we're not pushing back on price at all. I think we're going to get this put together. We've just got 1 or 2 things here that we're pushing back on. And there were 7 things that they pushed back on, right? So they kept listing this and I kept having to say, give me 1 second. I'm taking these notes down. Okay, that's it. No, there's a little bit more. And then they would list off another thing. Okay, great. Let me hold on 1 second. Okay, got it. That's it. Nope, there's a little bit more. It was nonstop. And I thought, wow, my biggest challenge, because when you added all of this up, if I do it was less than 1% of the sales price, all these issues added up to. It made some of the terms worse, which made it a little bit less convenient. But really, I thought, and I even shared this with the agent, I said, when I share this is going to be overwhelming for my buyer. And I'll present it any way you and your seller want me to. But what if you were to give in to all these financial things and take that amount and just attribute it to the price? Now, instead of beating on him in 7 areas, I'm beating on him in 2 areas. I think that would feel better. And she said, nope, this is how we want it. Okay. I brought it to my buyer, and my buyer said literally what I thought he would say. And I coached him. I tried working him through it. I said, hey, numbers are numbers. Let's not worry about the details. You either like the number or you don't. And he said, I think these sellers and this agent are being unreasonable, especially with the strength of offer we gave them. We don't want to deal with these people. Not we don't want to deal with this house. We don't want to deal with these people. There was emotions involved. So really think about how you're presenting the offer. Really think about what it is you want. If it's a specific number you want, title's a great example. I get this all the time. Commission's another great example. I'll give both of them, where the buyer wants the seller to pay for title. The seller wants the buyer to pay for title. And if you don't pay for title, this is going to both parties. Well, that's not fair, and I'm not accepting your offer based on principle. Okay, well, I can tell you roughly 50% of my offers seller's paying and 50% of my offers buyer's paying. It's not a big deal, right? Whatever. But people will start to say things are based on principle, and they'll say someone's taking advantage of them, but really they have no clue what the thoughts and motivations are of that person, right? And that person's also thinking, oh my gosh, what do I do? I want to do this, but I don't know, I don't want to take advantage of these people. And you're not hearing all that, but that's a lot of times, not every time, what they're saying, what they're thinking, right? So the same is true with commission. It used to be, as of last August and earlier, you would pay a commission to your agent, whatever, let's just say it's 6%. That agent, that brokerage would retain 3%, usually, not always. And then they would pay out usually roughly the other half, which in this example would be 3%. And that was advertised on the MLS, and every buyer's agent knew it. And it was a done deal. You didn't have to talk about it. It was a done deal. You're making 3%. Sign right here. And the seller paid that whole thing. And now that's kind of been baked into pricing. Because if you're selling a home for $500,000 and you don't have to pay the buyer's agent, you're probably okay coming down 3% or maybe 2% or 1%, somewhere around there, to make up for it. Because that's an expense most people would have to pay. You kind of figured you would have to pay, but now you're not having to pay. So you might work a little bit on price. It's all baked into price. But now we've got agents, this is my opinion, and this obviously isn't 100% true because sometimes it's buyers and sellers, who are of the opinion that, hey, last August they said sellers don't have to pay this commission anymore. I'm not paying it. Okay, but in reality, literally every single deal I've done since last August, the sellers paid the commission. So it is still happening at a 90+% rate. I've got to imagine. I'm guessing it's still 98, 99% of sellers are still paying it. For sale by owner, maybe not. Builders, maybe not. In those cases, still, though, very high number, but not 95, 98, 99%. But because there's that perception, a lot of sellers feel if I got to pay any of that commission, that's not fair. That's not right. And so now you've got this, I don't want to say ego because that's such a pointed word, but I will say you've got this difference of expectations, difference of cultures, difference of education experiences, whatever, right? And even agents. Some agents are exposed to brokers and instructors who are like, hey, you need to accept whatever you can accept and, do what you can do to get the deal done. And then there's other agents who are exposed to brokers and instructors who are saying, hey, you need to realize that you're worth it. An attorney doesn't give deals. A doctor doesn't give deals. You need to go out there and earn, you need to provide for it, provide value, but you need to demand your compensation. So you've got all these different cultures, thoughts, instructions being given to people. That's what they're exposed to. And then you've got emotions attached to it. I'm kind of going down a rabbit hole here, but what I'm trying to say is at the end of the day, look at that offer as a whole. What does that entire offer give you as a chance of closing? What are your odds of actually closing? And if you've got a good experienced agent, they should be able to clearly communicate what your odds are and all the little pitfalls. Here's all your biggest risks. Here's how big of a risk it is. Here's what it means if it truly comes to fruition, right? Does it mean you lose money or does it mean you lose the deal? Let's talk about it. And then you go with your gut. But I will say this. If you're looking at an offer and the offer's contingent on sale, generally speaking, that is your one, hey, I'm going to beat on the seller. If you come in contingent and you want 20 grand off the price and you want a 60 to 75 day close and you want a 14-day inspection period, your odds of getting that offer every single time you beat on them in a different area, just pretty soon it's zero. Right? So have someone experienced who knows all this and really be prepared. If you insist on having that sale contingency as a buyer, try to get a buyer and try to get that buyer through inspection. Try to get a 40, 50-day close on your deal. So when you get through a 5 to 7 day inspection, you've still got 33, 35 days left. Now, within 1 to 3 days, you can go out, find your home, get under contract, 30-day close. You can close on the same exact date and you can get that done. If you got a 30-day close with a 15-day inspection and that person gets done with inspection on day 15, now you got 15 days, you may not be able to find a property and your funding actually get it all done in time to close on the same date, and that's a problem. So proactively think about that with the offer that you receive on your property, asking maybe for 40, 50, 60 days. Maybe the buyer says, no, you got to take all that into consideration. Is it worth it? Is it not? If it's 20 grand over, maybe it is. If it's 10 grand under, maybe it's not, right? But all those things come into play. So anyway, hopefully I didn't confuse you. Hopefully I gave you some nuggets there that help you. If you've got additional questions, feel free to put them in the comments, or you can send me a DM over Facebook and I will always answer them. But thank you for joining me. Have an absolutely fantastic week. Take care.